today how to recover the refrigerant out of an air conditioner. First of all, we're going to go over the equipment that you'll need. You need a set of manifold gauges, an extra hose, which is a fourth hose. You'll need a recovery jug, which is yellow and gray. You'll need a recovery machine and a set of scales. Once you have all the equipment that you need, you want to go to your data plate, which is located on one of the panels of every unit. You want to find out what kind of refrigerant you have. This unit is R22, which our equipment is capable of doing. And then you want to find out how much the factory charges, which is 5.3 pounds. So when you're done, you want to make sure that you have somewhere along that, around that weight, about 5.3 pounds. To start off, you want to hook your gauges up. You always hook, you want to make sure that your gauges are calibrated first. Before you hook them up, you want to make sure that all your O-rings and your brass fittings are free of any debris and intact. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at all my O-rings and Schrader compressors as well. Definitely don't want to get any debris or pieces of gasket into the system. That's why you always want to check and make sure that all that's intact before you hook your gauges up to somebody's unit. Alright, and once that's done, you want to make sure that your gauges are closed, because if you hook them up, the refrigerant will go everywhere if they're open. Then when you start hooking your gauges up, you always start with your high side first, with the unit off. I'm going to remove the brass cap in here. Set it someplace where it doesn't get trash in it, usually top side up. You want to make sure before you hook your hoses up that your other connection next to your gauge is loose, so that you can purge it and get any air out of your hose. Alright, now I'm going to purge this hose. Alright. Now before you hook your low side up, you always want to turn the unit on. That'll bring the system's pressures down to the lowest that it'll ever be. When you're doing a recovery, you want to always do it in air conditioning mode. It's probably got a delay, a little bit of a delay. We'll let a unit run for about a minute to 2 minutes to let the system's pressures get to where they're going to be at. Now I'm hooking this up to the suction line coming off the compressor. A telltale sign to know when it's ready is your high side gauge will stop moving around. It'll kind of settle down. Alright, I think we're ready.
That's why you do this.
Now you want to start by taking your tank, your recovery tank, you want to put it on your scales and zero those out. These usually have, this tank here specifically has a tare weight of 17.1 pounds. That means when the tank is completely empty, it weighs 17.1 pounds. With a 26, it'll hold 26.2 pounds of refrigerant. You don't ever want to go above 80% of the tank's total capabilities. That leaves room for expansion if it's in, let's say, a hot van or something. You don't want your tank to explode. I'm going to turn my scales on. Place my tank on there. The tank's weighing at 17.2 pounds. There could be just a little bit of vapor or dirt even on it. So I'm going to zero that out. There is on your recovery machine, there's a suction side and a discharge side. We're going to hook our yellow hose from a manifold gauge to the suction side here. Now I haven't opened my manifold gauge up to let any refrigerant into this yellow hose yet. I'm going to hook my tank to my recovery machine. That way I can purge both hoses at one time. You're going to get your fourth hose. Before you hook it up, you want to make sure that its O-rings and shredder compressors are intact and there's no debris on there. You want to turn your setting on your manifold on your recovery machine to liquid. And I'm going to crack the high side here. A little bit much. All right. So now my hoses are purged. I don't have any air in any of my lines. I'm going to go ahead and open up my manifold gauge, both sides completely. I'm going to turn your machine off. Then you want to turn on your recovery machine. This takes about 15 to 20 minutes usually. Depends on the ambient temperature outside. If you were in the field and you wanted to speed this process up and you had access to, say, ice, a bucket of ice or something, you get a 5-gallon bucket and set your recovery tank into a bucket of ice and that'll speed the process up. Or even if the homeowner will let you, you can run cool water from the water hose over it. It'll cool this tank off and the refrigerant will naturally flow to it, which will speed the process up. For video purposes, we're going to assume that we've reached 10 inches of mercury, which is a completed process of recovery. Say once we get our system down to 10 inches of mercury, we're going to, this machine here specifically will cut off once it reaches 10 inches of mercury. A lot of machines won't do that, so you don't ever want to walk off and leave your machine. So we're going to assume that this machine has reached 10 inches of mercury. We're going to close our ball valves here. We're going to let it pull down as though all the refrigerant in the system was pulled out. This machine will cut off once it reaches 10. Okay. So we're going to assume that all the refrigerant is going out into our jug and we've reached 10 inches of mercury. HD, which is vacuum. Then we're going to turn our dial setting to purge, which will pull as much refrigerant as the machine is capable of pulling out of the hoses, the manifold, and the machine and put it into our tank. All right. Then we're going to close our tank. I'm going to close our ball valve here. We're going to turn the machine off. We're going to remove our yellow hose. We're going to place it back on the back of our manifold gauge. Now you can make whatever repair needed to the system. It has no refrigerant in it. So if you needed to replace a component inside the machine, inside the system, you could do that. And then you want to, once you get done doing that, you want to charge it with nitrogen, check it for any leaks, and then blow a vacuum on it. Video.